Mystic Travels, Act 1, The Tribulation Rises, Prologue. Some say that the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. For my eye have tasted of desire. I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think that I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Mystic Travels Prologue. I was only 16 when they came to my world. They came in a cloud of flame and death, and the sound of 1,000 screams rang out as the fabric of my world was ripped apart to allow them passage into it. There would be millions more screaming before the day would end. The day had began so normal. I was awakened by the light of the two suns my world orbited. The light caressed my face with just enough warmth to make my eyes open. As always, I was laying in my bed. My room was on the second floor of my family's home. I could already hear my mother and father chatting downstairs. My parents were both great sorcerers, the greatest of my world. Our home was huge and sat nestled by the royal castle. My parents were favored by the royal family, not only because they were sorcerers, but also as advisors. Our world had been united as one kingdom for 1,000 years. My parents were leading the rest of the sorcerers on a quest to delve even deeper into their magical abilities. They had been up nearly half the night discussing new methods. I dressed in no hurry to go downstairs. I wish that I had been. I wish I would have rushed straight to my parents and spent as much time with them as possible. Just as I was putting my shirt on, I heard the sound. It sounded like the terrified screams of 1,000 grieving people. Looking out my window, I saw a massive portal rip reality. I witnessed firsthand hundreds of massive insect-like creatures pour out of the portal. The insects ran rampant across my world's beautiful green fields, attacking and killing everything they came in contact with. Within minutes, my people were up in arms, hundreds of soldiers mobilized towards this insect army. I thought perhaps the soldiers were grateful for an opportunity to finally go do battle. Volleys of arrows were shot towards the insects. The arrows pierced their flesh, and dozens of the insects fell dead. Watching from my window, I wondered why, or better yet, how these creatures had come into my world. They seemed to possess little or no intelligence. I saw no defining individual that looked like their leader. And then I saw them. The first to step from the portal seemed to be a woman. She had no hair, and she sent shivers of fear and revulsion through me just by looking at her. From her back protruded massive bat-like wings. Her skin was pure white, and I watched as she glided to the front line of battle. She extended her hands, and instantly the soldiers nearest her fell, vomiting violently and then dying. The scene of horror before my eyes was something I thought could never get worse. I was so completely wrong. Because then she appeared. Her image will forever be burnt into my memory. Blood-red flames had erupted near that bat-winged woman. First, I saw a long, obsidian-colored leg, and then out stepped a tall, frighteningly beautiful woman. Her skin as black as the other woman's was white. Her hair a wild mane of white that floated around her as if she had been submerged in water. Seeing her, I somehow knew she had come here for something more than a slaughter. She stood very still. It seemed she was trying to sense something. While she stood, I saw the other woman battling my people's armies. It was so vile. Every soldier within her reach met death swiftly. She spun in a circle, grabbing a soldier's ribs and ripping them out. The next second, those ribs had impaled the head of 2 other soldiers. She opened her mouth, and from it shot a long tongue with a pointed tip that went straight into another soldier's heart. I tore my gaze away from the horrific scene and saw the other woman, who I just noticed was wearing an incredibly bright red dress, a stark contrast to the other woman's black gown. The woman in red seemed to finally decide what her goal was. I watched in utter horror as she made a beeline towards my home. I tried to run down to where my parents were, to warn them in some way, but it was useless. I was rooted to the spot I stood by fear. The woman in red approached my home and casually shot a blood-red fireball from her fingertips. The fireball impacted the front door of my home, blowing it apart on contact and inciting a fire in the doorway. The sound of my door blowing apart made me finally draw up the strength to move. Slowly, I crept down the staircase and watched as more carnage played out before my eyes. My home had been guarded by dozens of armed men, people I had known my whole life. The guards ran towards the woman in red, brandishing their weapons. A hint of a smile crept across the woman's face as she watched the guards charge towards her. When they were mere feet away, she sprang into action. 2 fireballs sailed from her hands in rapid succession, each one impacting a guard, incinerating them where they stood. Nothing remained of them but dust. She then lashed out with a roundhouse kick that shattered the skull of another guard. And then she summoned a dagger from thin air. The dagger was repulsive, a 12-inch blade with a handlebar that ended with a tiny, horrible-looking head that cackled in delight as it flew into the woman's hand. In seconds, she cut through our guards. Every single one of them had either their throat slit or had sustained such horrific bodily injury from her kicks and punches that they died minutes after coming into contact with her. My gaze shifted towards my parents, and I saw, as a shiver of hope caressed my spine, that they seemed to be ready for her. Together, my parents conjured a magical blast so powerful that it was shocking. I had never seen a magic spell so deadly in my entire life. The beam of energy they conjured ripped through the air like a sound of thunder and then collided with the obsidian-skinned woman, sending her flying backwards into a wall which then collapsed on top of her. I breathed for what seemed like the first time since I had seen that portal open up. No matter how powerful that demon woman was, my parents were more powerful. Gasping in relief, I ran to them. They exclaimed their joy to see that I was alive. We all embraced each other for what would be the last time. In the next moment, we heard a sickly sweet, feminine voice gush. What a beautiful family picture. My parents and I broke apart and saw a terrible sight. The woman in red had extricated herself from the rubble, and though an entire section of our house had fallen upon her, she showed no sign of injury. She wasn't even dirty or disheveled in any way. You poor creatures know so little about magic, cooed the red lady. You should never expel all of your magical energy in one spell. You never know if your enemy has something else up their sleeve. With that, the red lady turned her eyes on me, and she gazed deeply into my eyes, holding me in a trance. Since you, little one, have just sat and watched, I will allow you to live, to bear witness to my sister and I's greatness. You will tell others what happened here this day. You will tell those who come that I, Countess Darkclaw, and my sister Legion, demon goddesses from Hell's seventh circle, invaded your planet and killed everyone and everything. Tell whoever comes that we attacked